Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kayfabe Central podcast. It is February 6th, 2026, and we just had Friday Night SmackDown wrap up. If you are new here, welcome to the channel. If you are returning, welcome back. You know how this works. We go over everything that went down on said show today. Like I said, is Friday Night SmackDown, so I'm going to be breaking down everything that happened on SmackDown from the match results to the segments, all that good stuff. I'm going to go over for Friday Night SmackDown. I haven't done a SmackDown post show. I believe it's been like 2 weeks because one of them was when I was in Montreal last week. I think I was just tired because last week was the Saudi Arabia SmackDown and it was during the day. And realistically, I probably could have, but I was like, you know what? I'm too tired. 3 hour SmackDowns are killing me. And man, as decent as this show was tonight, the 3 hours still killed me. Like it's these 3 hours need to go, man. It's bad. It doesn't matter what you put on this show. 3 hours is going to kill everybody. And I don't even know if I could say that phrase on YouTube, but the 3 hours needs to stop. We should just go back to 2 hours. If you want to go to like how Monday Night Raw format is and go to 2.5 hours even, that's fine. And a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, well, 30 minutes doesn't make a difference. It absolutely does make a difference. It absolutely does. Because it's always that last hour that WWE doesn't know how to keep the audience engaged. And even for a crowd that was pretty lively tonight in Charlotte, North Carolina, they were a bit dead at times too. So the 3 hours is definitely draining, and it's not just a TV thing, right? I mentioned I was in Montreal for SmackDown a couple weeks ago, and my stepdad literally fell asleep watching it live. He was there with me, and he fell asleep right there. He was slumped. I don't mean to out his business like that on the podcast, but he was slumped. Like he was gone to the point where like a security woman came up and had to check on him to make sure he was okay. Like he's okay. Just WWE needs to stop doing 3 hours. 2 minutes and 30 seconds in, Josh is already ranting. So, this is going to be a lot of things to break down because we just had a lot happen on this show. And you know what? I'll give them credit where it's due. For the most part, they utilize the 3 hours. It's just the fact that it's 3 hours. This is not a pay-per-view. It's a weekly show that you run every single week, every single Friday, and it's 3 hours. If pay-per-views, that's fine because they're supposed to be big shows. But when you have a weekly show that's 3 hours, it doesn't always work out that well. Right? You need a time frame to keep your audience engaged, and I don't think that 3 hours does it. Like we even saw in Saudi Arabia, a place that's supposed to be a very loud and energetic crowd, when they got SmackDown. And I kind of feel like Saudi Arabia doesn't really watch the weekly shows anyway. They only know the big names, which is another reason why holding shows there is a bad idea among a bunch of other things. But even a place like Saudi Arabia, like they were dead during SmackDown too. So it's the 3 hours that's killing everybody. And at first I was feeling good. I was feeling good, and then the final hour hit, and I'm like, yep, it's time to turn the kettle on, make a cup of tea, make sure I can survive through this final hour, and then survive to get onto the post show. Because, like I mentioned, I haven't been consistent with the SmackDown post shows, but I wanted to tonight. I wanted to show some consistency, and I have not missed a single post show this week, so that's always a good thing. If you are in the live chat, make sure you guys are chatting it up. Let me know your thoughts on the show if you checked it out tonight. And of course, if you're watching this after the fact, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on everything, whether you agree or disagree. I always love hearing you guys' opinions. So make sure you guys let me know in the comments or the live chat, wherever you are. Let me know your thoughts and all that good stuff. And of course, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all the videos, podcasts, and interviews that come to the channel. Check out the Kayfabe Central website as well. That's where all my coverage posts are, preview posts are, written predictions, all that good stuff is over there on the Kayfabe Central website, as well as the group and community section that you guys can join. Obviously, you can check out the Kayfabe Central Discord server as well if you would like, if you want to build a community a little bit within Kayfabe Central. I am very on and off with the Discord server. So if you are in there and like 1 minute I'm very active and then the next 2 months I'm just disappeared, I apologize. But if someone shoots me a message, be like, oh, hey, the Discord server is like live and active now, maybe you should jump back in. I 100% will. So make sure you guys jump into the Discord server if that is something that interests you. But the rest of the self promo I will save for the end of the podcast, in the middle, of course, our sponsor for the video and the podcasts, all that good stuff we'll get into. But let's jump straight into Friday Night SmackDown. Drew McIntyre, who couldn't catch a break tonight, opens the show and is attacked during his entrance by Cody Rhodes. It's broken up by security. Drew is taken to the back. Cody gets in the ring and he grabs a microphone and he pretty much he talks about Roman Reigns and CM Punk, how he's proud of them for their WrestleMania match, two guys he has a lot of respect for. And then he's fired up. He's talking about how they mentioned his name and all that stuff because Cody Rhodes was brought up in that promo. And he pretty much said, "You're lucky that I'm not in that match because." Or he said something along the lines of it's just going to be a what measuring competition between those two, and you're lucky I'm not in that match because they don't call me Raheem for nothing. The crowd freaking popped for that, man. Like when I tell you they popped, if you didn't hear this pop for when Cody acknowledged the Raheem meme, it was hilarious. It was hilarious to hear him bring that up on national television. Um, but yeah, and if you don't know the memes that I'm talking about, there's so many memes of people being like, "Oh, Cody Rhodes is an African American legend." It's a weird meme that goes around, and he's finally acknowledged it on TV, like he's acknowledged it on his podcast and whatnot before. But yeah, I found it pretty funny, and the crowd loved it. I want to give props to Cody Rhodes, by the way, before I go more in depth into this segment and the rest of SmackDown. Cody Rhodes is just so damn good. Like the crowd could boo him when he first comes out, and when he leaves, the crowd will be cheering him and singing his name. He's just so good at being a babyface and being that good guy for the crowd and making that crowd be on his side again. Even if they start booing him, he's so good at making sure that the crowd is with him still. So Cody Rhodes is just awesome, man. And it's going to be intriguing to see where all this stuff goes because we did have a lot more develop later on in the night that I'll break down. But that's pretty much it. Cody says his discomfort becomes Drew's downfall, and Drew won't make it to WrestleMania. So it's going to be interesting to see that develop. Backstage, Kathy Kelly is with Kiana James and Julia. Kiana says the tag team championships are just a stepping stone for Julia to become a triple champion because Kiana James expects them to win the tag titles and then go on to the Elimination Chamber, win the Elimination Chamber, and beat Jade Cargill or Jade Cargill for the Women's Championship. I was going to say or Stephanie Vaquer, but we all know Liv Morgan is choosing Stephanie Vaquer. We did have Liv Morgan on this show, so we'll be talking about that. So pretty much nothing else to break down on this backstage segment. And then Nick Aldis also removed Cody Rhodes from the arena and says he has to wait for his Elimination Chamber qualifying match and the Elimination Chamber if he wants to get his hands on Drew McIntyre. So Cody is sent home. We then went to the women's tag team championship match. That was Rhea Ripley and Io Sky defeating Julia and Kiana James to retain the title. So the quest for Kiana James and Julia to be triple champion, or for Julia to be triple champion, did not work out. This was a fun match. And I'm gonna say that a lot with some of the matches on this card because I don't think there was necessarily a terrible match on this card. There were some matches that I expected more from that didn't deliver. But maybe I set my expectations too high. Maybe it was something along those lines. But there were certain matches on this card that I'll get into that didn't really live up to the expectations I had for it. This was not one of them. This was one of those that I actually didn't have many expectations for and thought it was just going to be a match to be a match. But Kiana James just proves why she's an excellent wrestler. Julia is an excellent wrestler as well. And of course, Rhea and Io do what they do. They're just fantastic. And they come out victorious here. Solid match. Solid outing for all four women. I don't have any like notes or anything specific about this match or anything that happened during this match. It was just a women's tag title match. Nothing happened afterwards. Rhea and Io just retain. Backstage, Ilya Dragunov is approached by The Miz, or he walks past The Miz rather. And Ilya and The Miz both want a United States Championship opportunity. The Miz tells Ilya that he already spoke to Nick Aldis and he can consider his opportunity lost for tonight. Carmelo Hayes then approaches and he then says The Miz is not going to get an opportunity at the U.S. title because he doesn't deserve it, but Ilya Dragunov does. Um, and the only thing that Miz is getting tonight is an ass whooping. So that did lead to Carmelo Hayes and The Miz. Uh, but firstly, I don't like the fact that we're announcing ahead of time who Carmelo Hayes' opponent is going to be. If it's an open challenge, I like the surprise element of the open challenge. That was one of the biggest, if not the biggest factor of the open challenge. So I don't really understand why we're announcing his opponents ahead of time because now we're just going to expect him to run it back with Ilya again. And not to say that's a bad thing because I'm sure it'll be a good match, just like the match with Carmelo Hayes and The Miz was a good match. But at some point we're gonna need some change. We're gonna need some different opponents. If you really want to elevate this U.S. title, you got to throw some different people into the shuffle. But like I mentioned, Carmelo Hayes defeats The Miz in a great match. And again, I didn't think that this match was happening. It wasn't one that they announced ahead of time. It was sort of like an impromptu match, I guess. But Carmelo Hayes picks up the win. The Miz is just, I feel like he just gets better the older he gets. Like he is so underrated, and I think finally some people are now realizing how good The Miz actually is. And The Miz is a guy that's always going to get opportunities from the WWE because he's their guy. He's been there for what, like 20 some odd years, something like that. Um, I don't know the exact number, but yeah, I this was a great match. I was very sports entertained by this match. And Carmelo picks up the win, but nothing happens after or during or anything like that. Ilya doesn't get involved or anything like that. It's just a match that Carmelo Hayes picks up the victory. Um, Backstage, Kathy Kelly was with I can't speak today, is with Tiffany Stratton, and Stratton says she's not going to let the Royal Rumble loss ruin her WrestleMania hopes, and she looks to win the Elimination Chamber qualifier and win the Elimination Chamber match itself and go on to WrestleMania to face for a women's championship. Chelsea Green alongside Alba Fire interrupts this segment, and Chelsea Green is pleading her case of being screwed over at the Royal Rumble. It's kind of funny that Chelsea Green and Becky Lynch are doing very similar things. Like Becky Lynch had tweeted out that she wants a redo of the Royal Rumble. At this point, I think we just need to get Chelsea Green and Becky Lynch as a tag team of some sorts. Maybe get Becky in the Secret Service or something, because I think that would just be the, you know, That's the Karen duo right there. So I think that would be really cool. But Chelsea Green is pleading her case. Tiffany says Green's name is going to be in the obituary after tonight because her WrestleMania dreams are going to be dead. So that was that. Now, after this, we had a vignette from Bo Dallas, and all I wrote on the website was vignette Bo Dallas because I don't care anymore, guys. I really don't. I could I'm not going to cuss on here because you know, sponsor, all that good stuff. But man, I don't care. I really don't care anymore. And I don't understand what they're doing with the Wyatt Six and with the MFTs. There's just so many different things. I don't understand if this feud is done, if this is now just between Solo and Bo, what the MFTs are doing. This is all over the place, and it just this part of SmackDown hurts my head the most because I've never been a huge fan of the Wyatt Six. Whether or not that's a hot take, fine, let it be. Um, but I've never been a big fan of the Wyatt Six, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And at this point, you either gotta send one of these guys over to another brand or just completely scrap this feud. Because the way I'm looking at it, I'm looking at Bo Dallas versus Solo Sikoa at WrestleMania for the stupid lantern. And look, I get what the lantern means. I get it. I get it was a Bray Wyatt thing. But it gets to a point where I'm just like, man, maybe we should just let Bray Wyatt be Bray Wyatt. Let him rest in peace. Put this rivalry to rest, man. Like I get tired of it every single week. Um, it's just not good. There's no other way to put it. It's just not good. And there was one point in time I was giving it the benefit of the doubt because I said it's missing that umph to it. And they went the opposite direction. They have, sort of disregarded the rest of the Wyatt Six and the MFTs in this rivalry, and it's kind of just become about Solo and Bo now. And I don't know how good that's going to be. You have 10 weeks until WrestleMania. 10 weeks. You're telling me you're gonna drag this out for 10 more weeks? That's ridiculous. But that's my little rant and tangent about this for the week. Next week it'll probably be the same thing. But we went to the triple threat qualifying match for the women's elimination chamber. That was Tiffany Stratton, Lash Legend, and Chelsea Green. Tiffany Stratton picks up the win. I can't remember. I believe she pinned at Chelsea, if I'm not mistaken. And she advances to the elimination chamber. Great match. Really great match here. I think all three of these women cooked. They did a phenomenal job. Um, yeah, Lash looked great. They are doing a very good job at spotlighting Lash Legend and making sure she looks like a star because she is going to be a star. Chelsea Green was phenomenal. The crowd did not want to boo her. I don't think any crowd wants to boo Chelsea Green. She is just fantastic. And of course, Tiffany Stratton is Tiffany. She's amazing. And I figured that she was going to pick up the win here anyway. But yeah, Tiffany Stratton picks up the win in a great match. Again, not any notes that I had for this match in particular. But yeah, solid enough match here. Solid enough triple threat. A lot of time these Elimination Chamber qualifiers are pretty solid. Like, even last year when we had the Chamber qualifiers, they had some really solid outings there and some really good pairings. So I expect the same thing, around the same thing this year. So this was good. Definitely a thumbs up for me. Kathy Kelly was with Randy Orton backstage, who was very confident ahead of the qualifying match. Now, I didn't hear a lot of what Randy said, but I got the gist of what he was saying. He's just pretty much what everybody else was saying about the qualifiers and the Elimination Chamber. They're confident that they're going to win. But there was a lot of chaos and noise going on in my house at the time, so I didn't really hear. But Aleister Black, alongside Zelina Vega, of course, entered the frame and it just issued an ominous warning. Again, didn't hear much of what Alistair said, but it's usually along the same lines anyway of what he says to people. And then Zelina Vega just gives him a very dark stare, like she stares at everybody. So nothing too crazy here. Um, we then had Kit Wilson come out, and he called everybody in the Royal Rumble toxic, because the only non-toxic man in WWE, according to Kit Wilson, is himself. He talks about how everybody in the Royal Rumble has toxic masculinity and all that stuff. And he says if anyone who was in the Royal Rumble is brave enough to face him in a match, um, then to come out and face him one on one. The lights go out and Obafemi comes out, and Obafemi destroys Kit Wilson. Um, they're booking Obafemi just like a beast, as they should, as they should. And Kit Wilson was the perfect person to do this to. I like he's not going to be like mid card star or anything like that. He's going to be the guy that people love because he's got a very interesting and different and unique character. But he's not going to be a guy that's winning championships and being in the main event or anything like that. He's going to be the guy that talks all the trash and then somebody comes out and just puts him down very quickly. Um, and it's fine. It works for him. He's very good at doing that. So, yeah, shout out to Kit Wilson. I will say, the theme song is growing on me. I was very negative on it at first because I was like, this doesn't sound really good. It's not my cup of tea. Um, and it's still not, but I can understand why a lot of people like it. And, hearing it today, I was like, okay, I can kind of see why people like this. It's not getting added to my playlist, but, it's a fun song. Uh, Backstage, R-Truth is with Damian Priest talking about how dominant Obafemi is. Drew McIntyre brushes R-Truth. Priest steps in front of Truth to defend him, and they have a little bit of a stare down. Priest says Drew has enough problems as is, and he doesn't need another one. Um, Drew then makes his way out to the ring again. He gets up. Actually, that's a later. But he comes out to the ring again. He grabs a microphone, but Jacob Fatu attacks him this time. And Fatu takes out the security guards and whatnot, but they eventually are separated. So that's why I mentioned Drew McIntyre could not catch a break on tonight's episode of SmackDown. Yeah, they're obviously building for that triple threat between Drew, Fatu, and Cody. It's gonna be interesting to see how they get there, though. And I am starting to think that, okay, maybe this is the WrestleMania plan. Maybe it is Drew Fatu Cody at WrestleMania, like everybody's saying and everybody was hoping. I was, the negative Nancy about it. I was initially saying that they'll find a way to do Roman Cody again. But obviously that's not the case with Roman facing Punk, and we'll talk about that on the headlines tomorrow. That's if Rue and Stu are able to join me tomorrow, then we're going to be talking about that. If not, then I'll probably just solo the headlines podcast tomorrow. But either way, I'll be breaking all that stuff down tomorrow. Um, but yeah, Fatu attacks Drew. They're separated. Backstage, Nick Aldis tells Fatu what he told Cody, that he needs to wait till the Elimination Chamber qualifier, and the Elimination Chamber itself, and then he sends Jacob Fatu home. So that was that. I will say I'm kind of liking this build. I'm kind of liking the build so far, but again, you have 10 weeks until WrestleMania. If this is your WrestleMania plan, you gotta have a really good 10 weeks. You got to, because if you don't, like, I say this with everything, with every single feud in professional wrestling, whether it's WWE, whether it's AEW, whether it's TNA, the match at the big pay-per-view can be fantastic. But for me, if the build to that match isn't good, it's not memorable enough for me. Like, I always use the Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks match at WrestleMania 37. Um, fantastic match. Fantastic match. But the build to that was very, very poor. So You need to have a good feud. You got a lot of time until WrestleMania. To some people, 10 weeks may not seem like a lot of time, but when you're booking week to week shows, it's quite a bit of time, especially when you have a goddamn 3 hour show. But I already talked about that. Um, Tama Tonga defeated Shinsuke Nakamura. This was a fun match. I don't think it was a bad match. I think it could have been a little bit better. The MFTs did get involved and help Tama Tonga win. I find it funny that Tama Tonga's finisher is pretty much just the hidden blade that Will Ospreay does. But I've seen a couple other people do it too. I think Dragon Lee does it as well. Um, it's a cool finisher, especially when done right. It can look really, really brutal. But yeah, Tama Tonga picks up the win here. Um, I wasn't really sure who was going to come out victorious in this one. I was leaning towards Shinsuke, but clearly they wanted to give the win to Tama. They might have some plans for him as a single star. I wonder if this is going to, by any chance, tie into Hiromu Tanahashi and Evil potentially coming to WWE, because there's been a lot of rumors about them heading over there, because their contracts in Japan are up. So maybe they come over to WWE and they're inserted into this feud of some sorts. You know, I was thinking that everybody in the MFTs, they have some sort of connection with Japan. And then you look at Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, he has the history in New Japan as well. And the only one is Solo Sikoa who doesn't have that connection. So maybe they're they're leaving Solo's side. Spoiler alert, the MFTs are not by Solo's side in the main event. So maybe they're just kind of leaving him very slowly to focus on their own thing and whatever is going on between Tama and Shinsuke. Could potentially be interesting. We'll see where it takes us. Um, we went backstage, and this this is where the show kind of took a dip. And this is the part that WWE desperately needs to work on. You either go back to 2 hours or you find a way to make this last hour really, really good and keep up with the rest of the show, because Motor City Machine Guns, who for some reason are just relegated to a main event, are walking with Fraxium and talking about whatever it is. They bump into Candice LeRae with Johnny Gargano, who is sleeping on top of like production boxes or whatever. And according to Candice LeRae, he's not been doing well since Axiom took his mask back. Um, and they Candice LeRae tries to ask them for help or whatnot, but neither team is interested in helping. Uh, Johnny, go to AEW. Just go to AEW, man. At this point, what are we doing? What on earth are we doing? There are so many talented people in this. I'm cussing. I'm sorry, guys. There are so many talented people in this fucking segment, and we're relegating them to this. You have Motor City Machine Guns, who are one of the most tenured teams in TNA history. Such a good tag team. And such kind individuals, too. I've spoken to both of them in person before. They are such kind individuals, especially Chris Sabin. Um, and then you have Fraxium, two very talented individuals as well. Axiom, great wrestler. Nathan Frazier, great wrestler, obviously trained by Seth Rollins. And as a tag team, they are very talented and entertaining. And then you have Candice LeRae. I don't think people understand how talented Candice LeRae actually is. If you don't, go back and watch her independent wrestling stuff, because Candice LeRae is so damn good. And I don't need to tell anybody about Johnny Gargano. We all know how good Johnny Gargano is, and we all know how good he can be. And this is what we have them doing. These six individuals, six very talented individuals, are here arguing over Axiom's mask. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Um, but that was that segment. Um, you know what? I'm gonna take this time to kind of shout out our sponsor here, because sometimes during a 3 hour SmackDown, your energy gets very low. and you get very tired, and sometimes you need a little something to get back in the game. Maybe you're waking up in the morning and you gotta go to work, you gotta go work out or something. Maybe you need some pre-workout. W Energy has got your back. You can get a bunch of delicious products on W Energy's website. And the fun thing about it is you can use code Kayfabe Central to get 10% off of all W products. So you get 10% off, you get your energy going, whatever it is that you need it for. I've made some jokes about what people may need energy for on the podcast before, but whatever you need it for, W Energy has got you. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a streamer, whether you work a 9 to 5, whether you do a podcast like me and you need to keep up with 5, 6, 7 days of wrestling. Yes, I said 6, 7. I swear if anybody in the chat says anything. Um, but if you need the energy, W Energy has got your back. Use code KFABE Central for 10% off on all W products. But let's get into some more Friday Night SmackDown, where Kathy Kelly was with Rhea Ripley and Io Sky backstage. They are still focused on the Elimination Chamber qualifiers and the Chamber match, despite being women's tag team champions. They say they can handle both. Nia Jax and Lash Legend approach them and say, if they were challenging them tonight, they would be the winners and they would be the new champs. And Io says, well, that sounds like a challenge. And Nia Jax says, it's time we talk to Nick Aldis. After they walk away, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez enter the arena, and they arrive and they have a little stare down with Io and Rhea. Doesn't mean anything. They just have history, so they had a little bit of stare down there as they entered the arena. Um, and I can imagine we're getting Liv and sorry, not Liv, Rhea and Io versus Lash and Nia for the women's tag team championships at some point. Maybe that's next week. I can't remember if they did announce that actually for next week's SmackDown, which for American audience, by the way, is on Sci-Fi. If you didn't catch that by any chance, it is going to be on Sci-Fi next Friday because of the Winter Olympics. But if you're international, whether you're Canada or anywhere else international, it'll still be on Netflix for you. So you guys are all good. But for American audience, it will be on Sci-Fi. Um, but that was that segment. And then Kit Wilson went up to Matt Cardona and says WWE got more toxic and had more toxic masculinity ever since Cardona returned to the WWE. And kind of just walks away. Matt Cardona says, anytime, any place. Matt Cardona was with Apollo Crews, by the way, who just seems like he's the guy that just hangs around backstage and occasionally will pop up in a segment for no reason at all. And then they're just going to relegate him back to main event. That's another guy who's very talented, and WWE just didn't see it. So either that or they don't know how to book Apollo Crews, which, it could very well be both. Um, but Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez are introduced by Nick Aldis. Liv says she is the greatest, the hottest, the funniest, most charismatic, talented, and iconic Royal Rumble winner of all time. And Liv and Raquel were about to talk about what happened on Monday Night Raw after Liv accidentally cost Raquel her Women's World Championship match against Stephanie Vaquer. But Jade Cargill interrupts this segment. Jade doesn't care that Liv won the Royal Rumble and says if Liv chooses her, she will beat her ass at WrestleMania. Jade has a little thing with Raquel Rodriguez as well when she asks, well, what are you looking at? Liv says she can easily pick Vaquer and let Raquel take Jade's title. That way, two members of the Judgment Day are women's champions. That brings out Jordynne Grace. I don't know what it is about Jordynne Grace, and I like Jordynne Grace. I think she's very talented, but when she speaks sometimes, she sounds like and I mean no disrespect, Jordan. I love you. You're very talented, but when she speaks sometimes, it sounds like um it kind of sounds like something you'd hear in a video game storyline. Like when someone voice overs a person in a storyline, that's what it sounds like. It sounds so NPC generated when she speaks. Um, but that's beside the point. She's a fantastic wrestler. This all leads to Jade Cargill and Jordan Grace against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Jordan Grace picks up the pinfall over Raquel to get the win for their team, despite the problems that Jade and Jordan were having. Raquel accidentally hit Liv with a boot in this match as well, so that developed more issues between the two as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see where that develops to. Um, Backstage, Sami Zayn is just looks like a little wimp, because he's got everybody saying, you'll get him next time, man. Sorry about the Rumble, Sammy. Ray Phoenix goes up to him and gives him some little motivation. Gives him a little bit of a pep talk. Says, man, you're Sami Zayn, you got this. And then Trick Williams comes into the frame. Trick says Sammy is Charles Barkley and he's Michael Jordan. If you don't get that reference, it's a basketball reference. And Charles Barkley has 0 rings while Michael Jordan has 6. So that's what Trick Williams is ultimately saying here. That Sami Zayn is just he folds anytime he gets to the big one. Ray Phoenix says he will knock Trick's teeth out. Trick says anytime, any place. So screw Sami Zayn, I guess, because damn, this poor guy. What do we do with him now? Like he lost to Drew McIntyre, and um, he just looks like a little wimp backstage in this segment. Like man, it sucks to say because Sami Zayn is so talented. He's so good. Um. But realistically, where do you go with Sami Zayn from here? I really, really don't know. I don't know at all. And I don't think that they insert him back into the world title picture for WrestleMania. I don't think that happens. Um, but yeah, it's very weird how Sammy looked in this segment. I apologize for the dead air, guys. Sometimes I have to take a sip of water when I do these podcasts all by myself. I've been talking for 36 minutes straight, so sometimes your boy needs some water. Um, Jade Cargill and Jordan Grace are backstage in each other's faces, yelling at each other until Nick Aldis approaches and says Jordan Grace will be getting a title shot against Jade Cargill next week on SmackDown. So that is set up. Jordan Grace is obviously, she's a WWE superstar, so she's not going to win a championship because she's not in TNA anymore, and WWE just loves having her lose every championship match she's in. So, yeah, I don't expect Jordan Grace to win this title at all, especially on just a random SmackDown. I know they like to do title changes in the lead up to WrestleMania sometimes, like how they did last year, but I don't see it happening here. Um, I was trying to pinpoint exactly what Jordan Grace did to earn a title opportunity because I wasn't very sure. Like she hasn't like won a specific number one contenders match. She hasn't been participating in a whole lot of matches. It's been more segments than matches. So whatever it is, what it is, it should be a fine enough match. I don't expect it to be all grandiose or anything like that, but should be a fine enough match. Um, Drew McIntyre comes out and he finally gets to say what he's been wanting to say all night. He says Cody Rhodes and Jacob Fatu should be banned from the Elimination Chamber qualifying matches for attacking him. He then says what happened to Sammy at the Rumble is what will happen to anybody that steps up to him. He then brings up when Roman Reigns and CM Punk said he was the easy route and was kind of diminishing Drew McIntyre a little bit. He brings up that he went through hell. He went through the pandemic, winning the title in front of nobody. And he brings up the tough times that he's went through to earn his championship. Drew says Punk was the easier option because, in Drew's words, he's old, he's washed up, he's almost at the end of his career. Whereas him, he's 200 pounds plus, pure muscle, and Roman did not want to wrestle him. So Drew says Punk is the easy route, and without Roman's bloodline, Roman would have never been able to beat him anyway. Um, Drew's heading to the back, and then Trick Williams interrupts And Trick says he's going to watch the main event and he's going to kick up his lemon pepper steppers. And he says Drew is worried about all the wrong things. He should be worried about him because he is the man that will take the title from Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. Then Drew responds. He tells Trick to walk before he can run, or he'll stick those lemon pepper steppers where the sun don't shine. So a very, kind of entertaining interaction here between Drew and Trick. They are putting Trick in all the right spots here. I heard Stu on his podcast talk about how he wasn't a big fan of like how they treated Trick in the Rumble, and I can kind of agree with that. But they're putting him in all the right spots here on SmackDown week to week. Trick is just great, man. Like random times of the day, I'll repeat what he said a few weeks ago on SmackDown. This guy is just so cool, and like I I want to hate him because he's a heel, but he's just so cool. I can't hate this guy, because he's just so good. Uh, when he said, what did he say? I got 8 abs, 3 cars, and 2 feet to put my lemon pepper steppers on. Like, man, this guy Trick is just so good. It's just so entertaining. Um, but then we went backstage to Solo Sikoa looking for his family, like he is Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, who lost his family. And he tells Kathy Kelly that he doesn't have time for any questions, and his family better be out there in the arena, which they were not. And he grabs the lantern and he goes out to the arena for the main event of the evening, which is a triple threat qualifying match for the men's elimination chamber. Randy Orton, Solo Sikoa, Aleister Black. This match got good after the second commercial break. Before that, it was kind of slow. I wasn't really that entertained by anything going on. It was just, a series of moves, and it felt like they were moving kind of slow. And the crowd seemed like they were a little bit tired as well, even though they were very loud for Randy's entrance. They were singing his song and all that stuff. And they popped for a few moments here and there. Trick, of course, was ringside, but he didn't get involved in any capacity at all, actually. This is like one of the first times I've seen someone sit ringside for a match and they don't get involved at all. There were times where he was just kind of like, "Oh, I'm just here. I'm not gonna touch anybody." Um, Randy Orton ultimately wins this match by pinning Solo Sikoa and catching him off guard with an RKO. Yeah, they really picked up after the second commercial break, and they were cooking, man. They were pulling out a lot of great moves. They probably saved all of it for after the second commercial break, just because they knew they got to close out on a strong note. So that they did. So the match gets a thumbs up from me. I figured Randy Orton was going to win this. Man, I always worry about Randy Orton's back, especially when he goes into any kind of no disqualification stipulation. I'm gonna be worried for him in the chamber, but he's Randy Orton; he'll be perfectly fine. And he's heading to the chamber. He's heading to Chicago. So yeah, that wrapped up Friday Night SmackDown. Overall, like I mentioned earlier, it was a fine enough episode of SmackDown. It was solid. It was a solid episode. There were just some things that I could have done without, but majority of what happened on this show, it mattered. And I understood why it was happening, because sometimes on SmackDown, I don't understand why certain things are happening. Like, I could have done without the whole Gargano stuff. I could have done without the Wyatt Six stuff and all that. But everything else seemed fine enough. And, you know, I'm loving the showcase of new talent. I'm loving the showcase of Obafemi, Trick Williams, Slash Legend, all these people, Carmelo Hayes getting week to week spots, even if it is against the Miz or Ilya every single week. He's putting on great matches. He's getting the spotlight every week. And SmackDown feels like more of the wrestling based show, I guess you could say. They have a little bit more matches than, Raw has or anything like that. So overall, it was a solid episode of SmackDown. I'm not going to complain too much about it, because I didn't hate it completely. I think it was fine enough. But But as always, I want to know what you guys have to say and what your thoughts are on Friday Night SmackDown. So if you are still in the live chat, make sure you drop your last minute thoughts because we are in the final stretch of this post show. And of course, if you're watching this after the fact, make sure you let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree with anything I said. Make sure you guys are following all social medias that are linked down below in the description. Of course, we mentioned, or I mentioned W Energy earlier today. If you guys are interested in that, go check them out. Go check out the Instagram or the Twitter or the X. TikTok, all that good stuff. Go check all those things out. You'll find announcements on Instagram and X for Kayfabe Central's channel, announcement of interviews, all that good stuff. And of course, make sure you guys have post notifications on for YouTube and yeah, that way you'll be notified anytime a podcast drops, anytime an interview drops, whatever the case may be. Anytime I go live for these post shows, you'll be notified as well. So make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you're up to date with everything that comes to the channel. But that is going to do it for me for this post show review. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and everybody. I thank everybody in advance for leaving their thoughts down in the comments and watching this after the fact. I am going to call it a night because I am starting to lose my voice. I will be back tomorrow with the headlines in pro wrestling this week. Something else I didn't do last week because of the Rumble and all that stuff. So I will be back tomorrow. I'm not quite sure yet if Rue and Stu are going to be joining me just yet, but if not, I will be soloing it. And I will be here tomorrow for the headlines in pro wrestling this week. I will see you guys there. And until then, take it easy. Have a good night, everybody.